My name is Roberto Mendoza, I'm 43 years old, and until 3 years ago, I was certain of one thing: when you die, the light goes out, and that's it. No heaven, no hell, no final judgment, just the eternal silence of matter decomposing. I was a neurosurgeon. I had seen hundreds of brains, studied every synapse, every neuronal connection. For me, everything we called the soul was just brain chemistry, electrons dancing in a mass of pink fat. But there were 7 minutes in my life when everything I believed shattered, 7 minutes when I experienced something my science could never explain, 7 minutes in a place I swore my whole life didn't exist. Since I was 18, I've declared myself an atheist, not an agnostic atheist. There was an important difference for me. Agnostics doubt. I was certain God didn't exist, period. I graduated with honors in medicine from the University of Buenos Aires. I did my specialization in neurosurgery in Boston. I published articles in international journals on consciousness and brain activity. My life was perfect in its materialist logic. I worked 14 hours a day, earned a good salary. I had an apartment in Recalta, a Tesla in the garage, a model girlfriend who appeared in magazines. On weekends I participated in online debates against believers. It was my hobby, my way to relax. I entered religious forums with scientific arguments and demolished their beliefs with data and logic. I felt like a teacher teaching children that Santa Claus doesn't exist. My mother called me every Sunday. She had returned to church after my father died of cancer 5 years earlier. I found it pathetic, a psychological defense mechanism against grief. Nothing more. I remember one of those calls perfectly. It was a Sunday in July. I was in my office reviewing CT scans. "Son, I just want you to know that I pray for you every day," she said. "Mom, we've already talked about this. I don't need prayers. I need you to accept reality," I replied. "Roberto, your father's death hardened your heart, but God..." "Mom, please," I interrupted her with that tone she used with incompetent students. "Dad died because the cells in his pancreas mutated uncontrollably. There's no divine plan, no purpose, just bad luck with genetics and cancer." I heard her silence on the other end, that silence that I now know was full of pain. "Someday you'll understand, my love. I just hope it's not too late," she said, her voice breaking. "Too late for what, Mom?" "There's nothing." Then I replied. I hung up feeling victorious as always. That conversation repeated itself with variations for years. I always won the argument. She always remained silent. I interpreted her silence as intellectual surrender. Now I know that it was love enduring my arrogance. My life was a perfect equation. Knowledge plus money equals happiness. On Sundays I handled complex cases while others wasted time in churches. I spent my nights studying with my girlfriend in expensive restaurants where we talked about trips to Europe and cryptocurrency investments. God was for the weak, religion was for the ignorant, and I was above all that. But life has a cruel way of destroying our certainties. It all began on Thursday, March 23, 2023. It was a cloudy day in Buenos Aires, hot and humid, the kind that makes your shirt stick to your body. It was 6:42 p.m. I remember the exact time because I checked my watch, thinking I'd be late for dinner with my girlfriend. I had just finished a 10-hour surgery, a complicated brain aneurysm, and I was exhausted but satisfied. The patient had survived, and my team had applauded me. I felt like a god, saving lives with my hands and my knowledge. I went into the locker room to change. I was alone. The fluorescent lights were whirring with that annoying sound that hospitals always have. I took off my scrubs, opened my locker, and took out my shirt. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my chest. It was as if someone had stuck a cold needle straight into my heart. I thought it was just tiredness, muscle tension. Maybe I had been in a bad position during the surgery. I rubbed my chest with my hand. The pain increased. It was no longer a prick, it was a pressure, as if an elephant had sat on my sternum. My knees buckled. I fell against the wooden bench. Heart attack, I thought with clinical clarity. I'm having a heart attack. The irony struck me even then. The doctor who saves brains can't save his own heart. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My hand searched for my phone in the pocket of the pants I had left on the bench. I couldn't reach it. My fingers went numb. My left arm burned as if it were on fire. The pain in my chest spread to my jaw, to my back. I fell to the floor. The cold ceramic tile floor against my cheek. I saw my shoes 30 centimeters from my face, incredibly expensive Italian shoes. I thought, I'm going to die looking at shoes. The world began to darken from the edges, like when you close an app on your phone and the screen gets smaller and smaller until it disappears. That's how my vision faded. I heard footsteps running, voices. Roberto, Roberto. Someone was shouting my name. It was Lucia, one of the nurses on duty. She must have gone into the locker room for something. Code blue in the men's locker room. I heard her shout over the intercom. Her hands turned me over onto my back. Her face appeared over mine. Roberto, stay with me, stay with me. Her tears fell on my forehead. I had never seen Lucia cry. She was tough, professional. She had been in the ER for 20 years. More footsteps, more voices. Drive. Fernandez, the cardiologist, appeared in my field of vision. Someone tore my shirt. I felt cold hands placing electrodes on my chest. Ventricular fibrillation. I heard Fernandez say, prepare the defibrillator. Numbers, medication doses, syringes. Everything I had done 1,000 times to other patients, was now being done to me. The difference was that I understood exactly what each word meant, and none of them were good. Charging to 200 joules. Everyone in the back. The electric shock pierced my body. It was like being kicked in the chest by a horse. My back arched. Nothing, no pulse. Increased to 300. Another shock, another kick. My consciousness began to fragment. The sounds arrived delayed, like in a badly dubbed movie. Faces blurred, and then everything went dark, not gradually, but suddenly, like when a city goes dark. Absolute silence, total darkness, but I remained conscious. That was the first thing that terrified me. I, Roberto Mendoza, the materialist scientist, was still thinking, still me, but my body had stopped functioning. That was impossible, according to everything I knew. Consciousness was the brain. Without oxygen in the brain, there was no consciousness. But there I was, floating in a darkness that wasn't just a lack of light. It was substantial darkness, thick, oppressive. I tried to move. I had no body. I tried to speak. I had no mouth. I tried to breathe. I had no lungs. But I was there, more myself than ever, terrified like never before. This can't be happening, I thought. It's a hallucination. Cerebral hypoxia. Dying neurons fire random signals that create subjective experiences. It's known, documented, not real, but it felt more real than anything I had ever felt in my life. The darkness began to move, to swirl like black smoke, and then I heard something, not with ears because I didn't have them, but I heard it inside me. Screams, thousands of screams, millions overlapping one another, forming a symphony of agony. They were human voices, but distorted, filled with such deep despair that it pierced me like knives. The darkness opened and I fell. I don't know how you can fall without a body, but I fell, an endless fall downward. The air around me, if it was air, grew hotter and hotter, from lukewarm to hot, to scorching to unbearable. Lights appeared beneath me, red, orange, flickering, fire. There was fire everywhere. I hit something solid, rocks, sharp, black rocks. Now I had a body again, but it was a body T had only served to feel pain. I got up. The heat was so intense that I felt my skin bubble, but I didn't faint. There was no escape in unconsciousness. I looked around. It was a nightmare landscape, black volcanic rocks, cracks in the ground from which flames erupted. The sky, if it was a sky, was the color of dried blood, and there were figures, shadows, humanoid shapes writhing among the rocks. I approached one. It was a man, or had been a man. He was curled up in the fetal position, trembling, moaning. His eyes, when they looked at me, were filled with a pain so ancient, so deep, that I understood he had been there not for days, not for years, but perhaps centuries, and worst of all, he recognized me. Doctor, doctor, help me, he said to me in a broken voice. He was one of my patients, a man who had died on my examination table, operations 3 years ago. I had filled out the report, comforted the family, moved on with my life, but he was still here in this place suffering. Please, please. He kept begging, clinging to my legs with hands that felt like claws. I couldn't help him, there was no way to help. This was a place without help, without hope, without end, and I knew it with absolute certainty. I was in hell, not the metaphorical hell of a difficult life, not the poetic hell of books, but real hell, the place I had denied, ridiculed, explained away as a human invention to control the masses. That place existed, and I was there. Panic gripped me, a panic that made the heart attack seem like a tickle. I ran, I don't know where, but I ran. The rocks cut my feet, but it didn't matter because the pain in my feet added to the pain of the heat, added to the pain of knowing where I was. I passed by more figures. I recognized some patients who had died, fellow doctors who had committed suicide, an ex-girlfriend who had died of an overdose, all there, all suffering, all aware that this was forever. I reached the edge of a precipice. Below was a lake, but it wasn't water, it was liquid fire, lava, and inside that lava were bodies, thousands of bodies sinking and resurfacing, screaming, burning, sinking again in an endless cycle. I stepped back, paralyzed. My scientific mind tried to process what I saw, hallucination, hypoxia, dying neurons, but no, this wasn't my brain making things up. This was real, more real than the reality I had known. This is because of my unbelief, I thought. This is because I rejected God, because I mocked believers, because I despised my mother, because I lived as if nothing mattered, except me. And now this was my eternity. A voice spoke behind me, a voice that wasn't human, deep, multiple, as if 1,000 voices were speaking in unison. Roberto Mendoza. The voice said, "Doctor, scientist, atheist." I turned around. There was no one there, only darkness darker than the rest, a darkness with form, with presence, with palpable evil. "You came home," the voice said. "This is your place forever." Terror froze me. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. The darkness drew closer and then something changed. A light appeared to my right, a light that wasn't red or orange, it was pure white. And unlike the fire that increased the pain, this light diminished, the heat receded, for the darkness receded. The voices screamed, not in agony, but in fury. Something was intervening. The light grew, it became so bright that I could no longer see anything, but unlike before, this blindness didn't bring fear, it brought peace, a peace I had never felt. I didn't even know that kind of peace existed, and within the light appeared a figure, a man dressed in white, with a presence so powerful, so full of love, that I fell to my knees, not out of fear, out of reverence, out of the instant recognition that I was before something, before someone infinitely superior to me. The man extended his hand. On his wrist I saw a scar, a nail scar. My rational mind, even there, tried to deny what it saw. It can't be, this is symbolism, psychological projection. But the man smiled, and in that smile was knowledge of every thought I'd had, every word I'd said, every taunt I'd written in internet forums. "Roberto," he said softly, "you didn't get here by accident. My time is not yet your time." Tears welled up in my eyes, tears evaporated by the heat, but they kept flowing. "Jesus," I whispered, that word I'd only ever used as an interjection, as a sophisticated swear word. Forgive me, I didn't know. His hand touched my head, and in that touch, I saw everything. I saw my life from the outside, every moment of arrogance, every time I'd hurt my mother with my words, every debate where I'd crushed someone's faith, not for the love of truth, but for the love of my ego. I saw the patients I treated as interesting cases, instead of seeing me as human beings. I saw my father dying, and instead of comforting my mother arguing about the non-existence of the soul, I saw everything he had done, everything he hadn't done, and the most painful part, I saw what could have been if he had lived with love instead of with arrogance. But I also saw mercy, a mercy I didn't deserve, a mercy that defied all logic. "There's still time," he said, "go back and tell what you saw, The light intensified, hell disappeared, peace enveloped me completely, and then I heard another voice, closer, more familiar. We have a pulse, we have a pulse, breathe, Roberto, breathe. My eyes opened, fluorescent lights, faces leaning over me, surgical masks, tears in Lucier's eyes. Drive, Fernandez tapping my shoulder. He was dead. 7 minutes, someone said. 7 minutes without a pulse. It can't be the brain, the neurological damage. But my eyes were moving, my hand rose. I grabbed Fernandez's wrist. I whispered, I saw everything. I saw hell. I saw Jesus. Fernandez looked at me worried. It's normal, Roberto. Hallucinations from lack of oxygen. It'll pass. I didn't say it more forcefully. It wasn't a hallucination. It was real, more real than this. My heart was beating. My chest was rising and falling. I was alive, but I wasn't the same anymore. I spent 3 days in intensive care. Neurologists came to evaluate me. They expected brain damage, aphasia, memory loss, personality changes. Nothing. All the tests came back normal. Too normal for someone who had been clinically dead for 7 minutes. It's a miracle, a nurse said. It's not a miracle, it's statistical luck, Fernandez replied, but I knew the truth. It hadn't been luck, it had been grace. On the 4th day, my mother visited me. When she entered the room and saw me conscious, she collapsed, weeping. She had traveled from Cordoba as soon as she heard. She came to my bed and took my hand. Son, thank God you're okay. And I, Roberto Mendoza, the militant atheist, the arrogant scientist, the man who had spent 20 years mocking his mother's faith, did something I had never done before. I wept like a child. Mom, you were right about everything, please forgive me. She looked at me, confused. Roberto, are you okay? The medication? No, Mom. I'm more sane than ever. I saw him, I saw hell, I saw Jesus. He saved me, he sent me back, and the first thing I need to do is ask for your forgiveness. Forgive me for every cruel word, forgive me for despising your faith, forgive me for not being there when Dad died. I'm sorry for being the worst son. My mother hugged me, she hugged me and cried, but now her tears were tears of joy. I prayed for this moment every day, every hour. God heard, he always listens. That hug healed something in me that I didn't even know was broken. For years I had built walls around my heart, walls of logic, of science, of arrogance. In 7 minutes those walls had crumbled and what remained was vulnerable, humble, but finally alive, truly alive. I left the hospital 2 weeks later. The world looked different, the colors brighter, the sounds clearer. Every person in the street was an eternal soul, not just a walking body. My girlfriend came to find me. We talked. I told her what had happened. She didn't believe me. She thought I was traumatized. Roberto, you need to see a psychiatrist. These near-death experiences create vivid hallucinations, but they're just brain chemistry. Hearing my own arguments come out of her mouth was surreal. We broke up that same week. She needed the old Roberto. I wasn't that man anymore. I went back to work a month later. My colleagues treated me differently, carefully, as if I were fragile, as if I could break at any moment. In medical meetings, when complicated cases arose, I wasn't the first to speak anymore. I listened more, valued more. I saw patients differently. One day I operated on a 60-year-old woman with a brain tumor. The surgery went well. When she woke up from the anesthesia, the first thing she said was, "Doctor, I saw something while I was asleep. I saw a light. I saw my husband, who died 5 years ago." Before, I would have explained to her that it was just the effect of the anesthesia. Now I took her hand and said, "I've also seen things that science can't explain, and that's okay. Not everything needs an explanation." She cried with relief. I started going to church with my mother on Sundays. Those Sundays I used to spend operating or sleeping. At first, it was awkward. I didn't know the songs, I didn't know when to sit or stand, but over time I found something there, community, purpose, a weekly reminder that there is something bigger than my ego. A pastor asked me if I wanted to share my testimony. I hesitated. I was afraid of ridicule. The atheist doctor who now believes in Jesus would be news. My colleagues would make fun of me, but I remembered the words in that light, "Go back and tell them what you saw." So I spoke in front of 200 people. I told them everything: hell, fire, the suffering souls, the darkness, and then the light, Jesus, mercy, the return. When I finished, there was silence, then applause, then people approaching with tears, people saying they had been on the verge of suicide, people saying they had lost their faith. People told me that my story had given them back hope, and I understood why I had returned, not to continue being a great neurosurgeon, not to gain money or prestige, but to be a witness, to be living proof that there is more, that materialism is incomplete, that God's love reaches even the most arrogant, even those who denied him their whole lives, even me. Now, 3 years later, I am still a doctor, but my approach has changed. I operate with the same technical precision, but with a different motivation. Each patient is an opportunity to serve, each surgery is a prayer, each life saved is a reminder that he saved me first. I write about my experience. Some scientists attack me, calling me a quack. They say I damage the credibility of medicine. Other doctors write to me privately saying that they too have had similar experiences, but are afraid to share them. The scientific community is ruthless with anyone who suggests that consciousness transcends the brain, but I no longer live for the approval of my colleagues. I lived for the approval of just one. My relationship with my mother has completely transformed. Now we are best friends, we pray together, we study the Bible together. She teaches me things she should have taught me when I was a child, but I was too proud to listen. We visit my father's grave together. I talk to him as if he were there. Dad, now I understand. Now I know that your life wasn't just failing chemistry. You were a soul. You are a soul, and I hope to see you again someday, but this time in the right place. My mother takes my hand when I talk to the grave. There is no need for arguments anymore. There is no longer a need to prove anything. There is only love. There is only gratitude for the time we had. Now I want to speak directly to you who are watching this. If you are an atheist, I understand you because I was you. I lived in the same arrogant certainty. I thought science had all the answers. I thought believers were weak or ignorant, and I was right about some things. Science is wonderful. Reason is important. Critical thinking is valuable, but I was completely wrong about the most important thing. It doesn't explain everything. There are questions that science cannot answer. There are experiences that logic cannot reach. There is a spiritual reality as real as the matter, perhaps more real, and what's most terrifying, there are eternal consequences for our temporary decisions. If you're agnostic, if you're on the fence, if you say, I don't know if God exists, I tell you, look for him. Look for him with the same intensity you would look for a cure for a terminal illness. Because there is something at stake infinitely more important than your physical health. Your eternal destiny depends on what you do with Jesus, not with religion, not with the church, but with Jesus specifically. He's not just a teacher, not just a prophet, he's the only one who has power over death, the only one who can stand you on the edge of hell and bring you back. I know because he did it for me. If you're a Christian, but you've been living lukewarm, without real commitment, let me tell you something, hell is real. It's not a metaphor, it's not symbolic, it's a place of eternal conscious torment, and there are people there who thought that being a good person was enough, that going to church occasionally was enough. It isn't. You need a real relationship with Jesus, you need true surrender, you need transformation, not just information. And if you're suffering, if you're depressed, if you've thought about suicide, please listen to me. Suicide is not the end of pain, it's the beginning of something worse. I saw souls there who had ended their own lives thinking they would find peace. They didn't find it, they found torment. Your life has value, your pain has a purpose. God can use your brokenness in ways you can't even imagine. I was broken on that hospital floor. I thought I would die looking at my expensive shoes, but God had other plans. He has plans for you too. Trust him, seek help, but don't end your life, please. If you have lost someone to suicide, I cannot tell you where that person is. I am not God, I do not judge. But I can tell you that God is more merciful than we understand, that Jesus reaches the darkest places, that where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. Pray for your loved one. Trust in God's justice and mercy, which are perfect in ways we cannot comprehend. My name is Roberto Mendoza. I am 43 years old. I am a neurosurgeon. I am a former atheist. I am a Jehovah's Witness. I was clinically dead for 7 minutes. In those 7 minutes, I saw two realities, the hell I deserved and the grace I did not deserve. I saw complete darkness and perfect light. I saw absolute justice and infinite mercy, and I came back with a simple message: Jesus is real, hell is real, heaven is real, eternity is real, and you decide today, with every choice, with every thought, with every action, where you will spend that eternity. Don't wait until you have a heart attack, don't wait until you're on the edge, don't wait until you see what I saw. Choose now, choose life, choose light, choose Jesus. Because after those 7 minutes, after seeing both sides, I can tell you with absolute certainty, there is only one way home, and that way has a name. It's called Jesus, and he is waiting for you with open arms, with scars on his hands that prove how much he loves you, ready to forgive everything, to transform everything, to save even the most arrogant of atheists, just as he saved me. Yeah,